Hi there and welcome to electronic music production with Ableton Live. So this is level 1 and this is part 6, which is just sort of a quick introduction to MIDI and MIDI clips. So up until now we've just basically been looking at working with audio. So we're going to look at MIDI now. MIDI is an acronym, MIDI. Which stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It's been around since the early 1980s. Makes me feel very old because I can remember when it was first kind of devised and came out. Kind of originally designed to sort of allow electronic instruments to sort of talk to each other, so you could connect, you know, one keyboard to another keyboard and share sounds between the two and synchronize up sequences and so on. It's kind of developed into loads more stuff since then, so it's used now. You can use it to kind of send MIDI messages to lighting with a bit of combination of DMX stuff, special effects on stage, and obviously with all computer audio things as well, and MIDI controllers and so on. So yeah. So in the setting of Ableton Live, kind of one of the most common uses of MIDI is to use it as a MIDI controller, such as using it like as push or launch pad and those kind of things. But we can still use it without a MIDI controller to enable us to play the instruments, the virtual instruments that are within Live, any of these. So first thing we'll do is we'll get rid of this audio track. So if you get rid of any of your tracks, just have a single MIDI track. What we're going to do is we're going to use the analog synth, because I think that comes included with all versions of Live. So if we click next to the arrow, we get these are all preset folders. So we're going to just choose a bass one, and we'll just do this deep hop bass for now. So we're going to just drag that and drop it onto this empty MIDI clip. And the first thing you'll see is the title bar has now changed to tell us the preset that we've just loaded. So we need to sort of tell this track to be ready to receive MIDI information, whether that's from our computer keyboard or a MIDI controller. We're going to do it from the computer keyboard because we're going to assume you've not got a MIDI controller. Obviously, if you've got a MIDI controller, then great. So in its simplest form, basically MIDI is just a set of messages that tells an instrument when to make a sound, what pitch to play it at, how loud it will be, how long the note will be, when to start, when to stop, and so on. In the world of MIDI, volume changes. The volume is known as velocity. Normally it goes from 0 to 127. So think of that as your volume dial. So if you've got a note with a velocity of 127, that's going to be at its loudest. If it's at 0, you're not going to hear anything. That's basically turned off. So in order to get ready to receive MIDI messages, we need to arm it, which is the record button down here. That's going to turn red, and that means now it's ready to receive from either a MIDI controller or a computer keyboard, which is what we're going to do now. So for it to enable it to receive MIDI from our computer keyboard, we need to make sure this bit is turned on. Okay, that little picture of a piano keyboard thing there. Might be a slightly different color depending on which skin you're using. I'm using the disco skin. I think in the default one it's I think it's yellow, if I remember rightly. So what happens now is the Q row of keys on your keyboard, I'm just pressing those now, they act as the black notes on a piano keyboard, and the A row acts as the white notes. So bear in mind that think of how a computer keyboard works. Not every button on the Q row is going to make a sound, because you don't have all black notes all the way through in the same way as you do with the white notes. Right, so if we just sort of listen to that, we can sort of hear it doesn't really sound like a bass thing, because at the moment it's only got one octave playing in there. Actually, before I do that, let me just go back to the Q button, because the Q button, if you press that, doesn't actually trigger a sound. It opens what's called the hot swap, or it activates the hot swap button. If I just press that now, you'll see here it's got the swapping instrument thing. What you can then do is just, if I want to swap it to say that, just and then enter, it's going to swap that instrument for that one. Okay, so that's what the Q button does. I'm just going to click Control Z just to get back. So we're on the thing before. So yeah, just onto the octaves then. You can only play one octave at a time off your computer keyboard. Obviously that doesn't sound very bassy, so we would need to drop it down a few octaves. Very easy to do. The Z button on your computer keyboard will drop it down an octave, and if we look down here, when I press that, it will say computer keyboard current octave C1 to D3. So we can hear that's now getting a bit deeper. Let's go down again, and that's going to change again. Okay, if we go down there, we're getting the bass sounds. Okay, and the X button will transpose up. So I'm pressing the X button now, so you can see down here it's telling us the octave that we're on. So I can go up and down with the X and the Z buttons. Right, so we know how to put a clip into our MIDI track. So let's have a look at actually creating a clip and getting something to play some notes for us. Very easy to create a MIDI clip. We don't have to record anything. We can just create a blank MIDI clip, and that's different to audio clips because you can't have a blank audio clip. Okay, audio clips always have to have some content in them. MIDI clips don't. So all we're going to do is double click on this slot here, and that's going to create for us a 1-bar MIDI clip. Now I'm just going to just expand this up. You can just pull up there to expand that there. I can see down here we have what is called a piano roll. So we can drag up and down on this section. If you just put your cursor here to the hand thing, we can move up and down the different octaves. Okay, you can see up and down like that. And if you drag to the right, it will zoom in like that, and drag to the left, it will zoom out like that. So you can get in really close if you need to see bigger sized MIDI notes. Now, if you turn this little headphone icon on here, we can actually play the notes off this keyboard, and you will hear the notes that you're going to play. If that's turned off, you won't hear that. Okay, so I will usually just leave that on. So we could record the notes in, or we can put notes in various different ways. So we're going to start with recording in real time. So if our track's not armed down here, you can see we have stop buttons here. As soon as we arm it, these turn to circles, and these are now record buttons. So to record and create a clip as we record it, all we've got to do is hit on one of those. So there's my keyboard thing there. We'll get a 1-bar count in. Okay, and you can see it's now recording down here, and that's just going to keep recording however many bars until we play or stop. Okay, and then hit the stop bar to stop it. Okay, so it's not going to record for a set number of bars. It will just keep recording, so you can play for as long as you want. You can see I didn't start recording until up here, and you can see the notes start to appear as we play them off our computer keyboard or our MIDI controller. If you look down here, these lines here are our velocities for each note. So our computer keyboard isn't velocity touch sensitive, so it always sends out the same velocity. So they're all going to be the same volume, and I was going to talk about that in a little bit later. So let's create a clip now by actually drawing a few in. So a few notes in. So if we double click there, we're going to create a 1-bar clip as we did previously. And if you look down here, okay, it says 1/16. This means that, I'm just going to turn that off now, that pen tool. This means that whenever we click on one of these notes, it's going to create a 16th note for us. Okay, you can right click and change that. So let's say I want to create 8th notes. You can see that note is now longer. So you can change that depending on the note resolution that you want. So to create notes, you can just double click to get rid of them. You can also double click again and it will go. If you want to delete a selection of notes, we kind of lasso around them like that. Hit your delete button and they will all go. If you want to extend the length of a note, grab it and drag it like that. So the editing actually is very, very similar to what we've looked at previously when editing clips. A lot of the commands are the same. So if I wanted to do, let's just get rid of that. I'm going to put, so let's say I want a whole row of 16th notes and I don't want to draw them in separately. All I would do is highlight the note. It will change color. And I can press Control D and then we can just duplicate them like that. We can also duplicate, let's get rid of those. We can also duplicate groups of notes like that. Again, we just highlight them and press Control D. You've also got your pen tool, which would kind of does the same thing. That if you kind of hold down and drag across, you see will create continual notes like that, which you can't do without the pen tool. I personally, I don't really ever use the pen tool. I generally just kind of click on the separate notes to create them like that. So we can get the velocity bits higher like that. Okay, so we can change some of the notes, and that's going to help sort of give your programming a more human feel, particularly with something like drums, because I mean I'm a drummer myself, and I know that when any drummer hits a drum, it's not exactly the same volume every time. So if you want it to sound like a machine, then great, have all your velocities at the same level. If you want it to sound a little bit more human, you want to just kind of vary some of the velocities. And the same with a piano player, they're not going to kind of have the same force on every single time they hit the key. So let's say I want to turn that note down. Okay, you see if I click on it and highlight it, you can see this one kind of goes a bit darker. I can turn that down. Now if you watch what happens, you can see this one, actually this one here. That one is somewhere else. Where's that one? Oh, I'm doing that one now. That was the one I just did previously. So you got to watch, you can see the one below, look, because when you get two notes together, in fact, so I'm not confusing you. I was going to get rid of that one. So we're going to do this one. So yeah, basically what happens is the quieter the note, the lower the velocity, and it gets lighter. Okay, so you can see it's right down at white there. When it's up at full velocity, it's going to be like full on bright red. So that's a good indicator. You can look at these and you can sort of see that you've got some differences in velocity as well. So that's good for, like, say, getting your music to sound a little bit more human. We've got the notes box over here, which is kind of similar to the sample box that we looked at previously in the audio clips. We can extend or shorten the length of our loops here. We can also duplicate our original notes by hitting the duplicate button, which is this bit here. So I was going to get rid of a few of these because there's a few too many, and just bring that down there. Okay, so if you hit duplicate, what you see is now it's created, because originally we had one bar, it's now created another bar with exactly the same notes in there. If we hit that again, it's going to double it again to 4 bars. So that's a useful way if you've got like 1 bar and you want to quickly get up to 8 bars, just hit your duplicate button. We could also reverse the notes. So if you hit the reverse button here, that's going to play them sort of backwards. So that's how it was originally, and then that's going to reverse them. And we also have the invert button, which kind of flips them upside down like that. So they're kind of good creative ways if you want to look at just some variations on your MIDI notes that you've put in. You can experiment around with those. And finally, the legato button is a useful one. Just if you want to actually highlight a whole row, if you click on the key next to it here, you can see I've just clicked on that and it's highlighted all that row. I'm going to get rid of that row. If you click legato, watch what happens. Okay, it basically joins all the notes up. So wherever there was a gap previously, it extends the note so the sound carries on right through into the next note, which is, again, another useful thing that you can experiment with in your productions. Okay, so that's about, I think, all I'm going to do on MIDI notes for now and MIDI clips. So I'd basically leave that with you to have an experiment with. Have a go at recording some in real time by playing them off your computer keyboard. And then have a go at doing them kind of bit by bit like this. Try swapping your instruments around, try different instruments, different presets, and then have a go at putting those together with a few audio clips as well. So hopefully that was of interest, and that's given you a few more tips and tricks. Usual things, please like, subscribe to the channel. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the box below. I am now accepting PayPal donations. I'll put a link for that as well in the description. There's also a link on my channel header. Yeah, if you're feeling generous and you want to just send me a few quid just to help keep the channel going, then that is much appreciated. And also just help me out by going and listening to some of my music and streaming some stuff and buying a bit of that. Again, all much appreciated, and it helps keep the channel going. Thanks for watching. I will see you in part 7, where we will start looking at warping our audio. Thanks. Bye.